The poem says, "People call us blood relatives. I call them slanderers." Suspicion easily ignites conflict. Petty people clamor and fight. Spears and halberds breed laughter. Joy turns to resentment. The loyal and filial are left to suffer in silence. Clever words are like a reed pipe, turning lush grass into brocade. Even when deceived, face to face, there are still double doors. A heart like a bright candle remains untouched by gossip. Family and nation share the same principle. The wise listen respectfully. It is said that wood has worms, which breed insects. Similarly, if one harbors love or hate, those who receive it will be fiercely opposed. Empress Dugu harbored a dislike for Crown Prince Yang, a fact noticed by Prince Jin. He deliberately contrasted this with Yang's own affections. Knowing Yang disliked his favored concubine, he feigned affection only for consort Xiao, temporarily suppressing his usual lustful nature. Knowing Yang favored frugality, he feigned thrift, temporarily concealing his usual extravagance. Unconsciously, he transferred Empress Dugu's affection for the crown prince to Prince Jin. Seeing the empress's slight favoritism, the eunuchs and palace concubines naturally fawned over him, gossiping and spreading rumors. They kept quiet about matters of propriety, but spread rumors about anything unpleasant. They covered up any wrongdoing in Prince Jin's palace for him, and they amplified any good deeds, spreading them far and wide. Furthermore, they couldn't bear the unusual hospitality shown to the Empress's confidants by Prince Jin and consort Xiao. Even ordinary visits from the Empress's palace servants were met with gifts. Who wouldn't praise him before the Empress? At this time, Prince Jin already knew that 7 or 8 parts of the matter were settled. He had also met Yuan Shu, the governor of Anjou, during the pacification of Chen. Because of his resourcefulness and wisdom, he was called Little Chen Ping. Prince Jin recommended him for the position of governor of Shuzhou while still in Yangzhou, thus allowing them to maintain frequent contact. One day, while discussing the succession struggle with him, Yuan Shu said, "Your Majesty has won the Empress's favor, so there is no need to worry about not having a capable advisor. However, in my opinion, there are still 3 things. First, although the Empress says she dislikes the Crown Prince and loves your Majesty, her dislike is not deep, nor is her love excessive. When your Majesty goes to court, you must use a self-inflicted injury ruse to move the Empress's pity and provoke her anger, thus strengthening her resolve. There is another matter for your Majesty. Find a trusted minister outside, whose words can convince the Emperor and who can offer occasional slander. You should do your utmost to encourage him. This would be a pincer attack from both inside and outside, ensuring success. But only. To depose and replace him requires a serious crime. We need to buy off one of his confidants, have him impeached, exaggerate minor offenses, and fabricate a powerful testimony, leaving him no room for defense. With this action, he will surely be deposed, and with this, your Majesty will surely be reinstated, especially with the Empress's approval. I can accomplish both, but it will cost tens of thousands of taels of gold and jewels. I would risk ruining my family, and even then I fear it wouldn't be enough." The Prince of Jin said, "I will prepare these myself. As long as your plan succeeds, we will share wealth and honor." That year, it happened to be the time for the imperial audience, and the 2 traveled together, each working separately. A clever plan to obscure the sun, a deep scheme to bring spring back from the dead of winter. While the Prince of Jin met with the Sui Emperor and Empress, and received gifts from all the ministers and officials, even the palace eunuchs and concubines received rewards. Among the officials, only Li Yuan said, "Although we are old comrades, a subject dares not have private dealings." He refused to accept the Prince of Jin's gifts. After paying his respects to the ministers and visiting his close friends, Yuan Shu went to see Yang Yue, the vice minister of the Court of Judicial Review. Yang Yue was the younger brother of Yang Su, the Duke of Yue. Su held the position of left vice minister of the Ministry of Personnel, wielding considerable power over the emperor. However, his position was extremely prestigious, and since the conquest of Chen, many of the palace beauties had been relegated to the inner quarters, leading to a life of indulgence and limited public access. Therefore, those with favors sought Yang Yue's assistance, making his door a bustling marketplace. Yuan Shu, an official outside the capital, waited a long time before finally being granted an audience. He presented a generous gift of over 100 taels of gold and left after a cup of tea. However, Yuan Shu and Yang Yue were old friends who had never been overly formal with each other, so he returned the visit. Yuan Shu was already waiting at his residence and invited him to sit down. The walls were lined with Zhou and Shang dynasty bronzes, exquisite artifacts, and dazzling objects. Yang Yue gazed at them intently. Yuan Shu said, "These are all thanks to the Prince of Jin. Brother, you have a good eye for fine things. I would be grateful if you could point them out." Yang Yue said, "My family has many golden jewels, but such things are rare. I once saw them at my elder brother's residence, and I feel that your collection is even better." He noticed a white jade chessboard and jade chess pieces arranged to the side. Yang Yue said, "It's been a long time since we played chess. Who are you playing with here?" Yuan Shu replied, "My concubine." Yang Yue said, "Was she brought from Yangzhou? Women from Yangzhou are often skilled in many arts." Yuan Shu said, "The chessboard is here. How about we play a game?" He then used a Shang dynasty bronze tripod as a prize. Yuan Shu deliberately lost several games, giving away more than half of his treasures. When the wine was served, the table was set with ancient artifacts from the 3 dynasties, interspersed with gold cups and jade goblets. Yang Yue said, "These gold wine vessels must also be from Yangzhou. I don't have such exquisite craftsmanship in the north." Yuan Shu said, "If you like them, I will send them to you." He then ordered another table and box to be prepared so that he could drink with Master Yang. All these trinkets were sent to Master Yang's residence. His men had already prepared and sent it over, but Yang Yue repeatedly declined, saying, "I dare not accept this. It would be greedy. How can I accept a salary without merit?" Yuan Shu said, "Brother Yang, when I was a general, my military salary was not enough to give to my superiors, and when I was transferred to Shuzhou, I only had enough to drink. How could I possibly give you anything? This is a gift from the Prince of Jin who asked me to deliver it." Yang Yue said, "I already dare not accept your gift. How could I accept it from the Prince of Jin?" Yuan Shu said, "These are just small things, nothing to be proud of. I would rather send you eternal wealth and honor to your brothers." Yang Yue said, "For me, I am truly not wealthy, but my brother is already extremely wealthy. Why would he need someone to send him something?" Yuan Shu laughed and said, "Brother, your family is wealthy. It may be prosperous, but it cannot last forever. Brother, do you know that the crown prince, unable to achieve his desires, is seething with resentment towards your elder brother? Once he gains power, he will have his own men like Yun Dingxing and his court officials like Tang Ling's. Can he possibly have your elder brother all to himself? Moreover, power breeds jealousy and influence breeds slander. Those who now bow down to their brothers, how can we be sure they won't one day threaten their brothers and plot to rise above them? Fortunately, the crown prince has lost his virtue. The Prince of Jin has always favored the empress, and the emperor has the intention to depose his son. If you and your brother can support this, then the Prince of Jin will remember the merit of your support. This is true and lasting wealth and honor. It is like removing the danger of a pile of eggs and achieving the peace of Mount Tai." "What do you think, brother?" Yang Yue nodded and said, "Brother, your words are indeed true. However, the matter of deposing and establishing a ruler is not something to be easily promised. Let me discuss it with my brother." The two drank heartily until nightfall. The 2 women were just paired up, and the empress had Li Jai. The power seemed to be gathering in the palace, and the forbidden palace was suddenly in danger. The next day, Yuan Shu learned that Jai Wei, a favored minister of the crown prince, was close to Duanda, a friend of Yuan Shu. Yuan Shu then gave Duanda gold and jewels, asking him to bribe Jai Wei and monitor the crown prince's movements. He also gave Duanda a secret plan. Do this and that before the appointed time, promising him future wealth and honor. Duanda agreed and kept watch for him. When the Prince of Jin was about to return to his post in Yangzhou, he followed Yuan Shu's plan, bid farewell to the Empress, and prostrated himself on the ground, weeping, saying, "I am foolish and ignorant of propriety. Because I cannot repay the kindness of my parents, I often send people to inquire after their well-being. The crown prince says my son covets the throne and harbors great anger, intending to kill and frame him. I fear that slanderers will betray me, and I will be poisoned at the palace. I am filled with anxiety and do not know if I will be able to serve your majesty." He then broke down in sobs. Upon hearing this, the Empress said, "Nai Dai's ambitions are becoming increasingly unbearable. I married a woman from the Yuan family, yet he doesn't treat me with the respect due to a husband and wife, favoring only A Yun. If there were such scoundrels, you would be bullied while I'm alive, and after 1,000 years you would naturally be fish and meat in his mouth. Would you then bow and scrape before A Yun, begging for a living?" Hearing the Empress's words, the Prince of Jin kowtowed and wept bitterly. The Empress comforted him, telling him to return home in peace, but he was not to enter the capital without a secret edict, nor was he to lightly pass through the Eastern Palace. "Stay for a few months. I have my own plan." The Prince of Jin left in tears. Yuan Shu said, "These 3 plans have already been completed." Liu Yingzheng rode near the Han Canal, the sun obscuring the distant capital. The 8 crows had already grown 6 wings, poised to soar straight into the clouds. A fall and a rise, all are ordained by heaven. Yang Yue, having received a bribe from the Prince of Jin, was to relay a message to Yang Su. Whenever they met, he feigned sorrow. One day, Yang Su asked him, "Why are you so downcast?" Yang Yue replied, "The other day my brother was away on a mission. The Eastern Palace Guard Su Osai seemed to have acted too harshly. I heard the Crown Prince say, 'This old thief must be killed.' Who else could that old thief be but you, brother? I worry that you, in your old age, will face this crisis." Yang Su laughed. "The Crown Prince can do nothing to me." Yang Yue said, "That's not true. The Crown Prince is the future ruler. If the Emperor were to abandon his ministers and the Crown Prince ascended the throne, my entire family would be at stake. How can we not be deeply concerned?" Yang Su said, "According to your opinion, you should resign and avoid him, or, now you've changed your mind and submitted to him." Yang Yue said, "Having abdicated and lost power, even if you submit to him, it won't dispel his resentment. Only by deposing him and installing someone else can we not only avoid trouble but also achieve great merit." Yang Su clapped his hands and said, "I didn't expect you to have such wisdom. It's beyond my expectations." Yang Yue said, "This is still too swift. If we hesitate any longer, once the Crown Prince takes power, disaster will be imminent." Yang Su said, "I know that the Empress must be the one to manage things." Yang Su knew that the Sui Emperor was most afraid of his wife and most likely to listen to women's words. He would often use the occasion of an inner banquet to praise the Prince of Jin's virtue and filial piety, thus sowing discord between Empress Dugu. The woman, narrow-minded and shallow, would then bring up both the Prince of Jin's good points and the Crown Prince's bad points. Yang Su would add his own sarcastic remarks. The Empress knew he was the most trusted person in the outer court, so she asked him to support the deposition and installation, secretly sending him gold and jewels. Yang Su had initially hoped the Empress would help him, but now that she wanted his assistance, he knew the matter was bound to succeed. Therefore, he frequently sowed discord before the Sui Emperor, and daily ordered eunuchs and concubines to seize opportunities to slander him, offering sarcastic and critical remarks about his shortcomings. As the saying goes, accumulated slander builds up, and 3 men can make a tiger. In October of the 20th year of the Kaiwang era, the Sui emperor issued an edict in the Wood Hall, demoting Yang to commoner status. His son, Prince Changning Yan, submitted a memorial requesting to serve as a palace guard. The Sui emperor showed great pity for him, but Yang Su blocked the request. Another official, Gong Min of Weiyuan, offered direct advice, and another, Wenlin Lang Yang Xiazhang, submitted a memorial, but the Sui emperor listened to Yang Su and both were executed. Yang Su, however, was pleased that his wealth and power would last. In November, he persuaded the Sui emperor to make Prince Jin the crown prince and Yuan Shu the left guard commander of the Eastern Palace. Prince Jin accepted the decree, first submitting a memorial of thanks, then choosing an auspicious day to meet with consort Xiao, moving to the imperial garden to serve his parents with great filial piety. The Sui emperor was pleased with this, but we will leave that aside for now. Now, Empress Dugu was known for her innate jealousy. Although the palace was filled with beautiful concubines and maids, a veritable feast for the eyes, none of them could truly win his favor. One day, Empress Dugu fell slightly ill and recuperated in the palace. Taking advantage of this free time, Emperor Sui, accompanied by a young eunuch, secretly strolled through the various palaces. He walked for a while in front of the Jik Tower, then stood for a long time in the Linfeng Hall. He observed the talented women, ladies-in-waiting, concubines, and other high-ranking officials, all adorned in brocade and embroidery, their beauty undeniable. He noticed that favor wasn't based on looks. Even the most beautiful peach blossoms seemed less appealing. After observing for some time, he found none pleasing to his eye. He then wandered to the Renshu Palace, where by sheer coincidence he saw a young palace maid rolling up a beaded curtain. Upon seeing Emperor Sui, she hurriedly lowered the curtain, bowed her head like a weeping willow, stood up, and stood leaning against the brocade screen with lowered eyes. The Sui emperor looked closely and saw that the palace maid possessed a face like a flower in full bloom, captivating and alluring. Truly. Laughing like a 3-foot-long spring breeze, proud as a ball of white snow. Infatuated, she seemed to be the spirit of autumn water. Slender, she seemed to be the bone of pear blossoms. The azure moon served as her bright earrings. Light smoke was cut into silk gauze. No need for light or heavy makeup. Her attire was clearly that of an imperial concubine. Upon seeing her, the Sui emperor felt a stirring in his heart and asked, "When did you enter the palace? Why haven't I been seen serving you?" Seeing the Sui emperor's question, the palace maid knelt and replied, "This humble servant is the granddaughter of Yuchi Jiang. Since entering the palace, I have been entrusted to this place by Her Majesty and am not allowed to leave without permission. Therefore, I have not served your Majesty." The Sui emperor laughed and said, "Get up. Today Her Majesty is not here. You may come and go as you please." Yuchi Jiang was a clever woman. Seeing the Sui emperor personally inquiring about her, how could she not take her in? With a flirtatious and alluring expression, she captivated the Sui emperor, who could not contain his desires. He stepped forward, took her hand, and said, "Today we have met. If I were to mistakenly reject her, I would be wasting this beauty." Just then, the attendants invited them back to the palace for dinner. The Sui emperor said, "Let's eat here." Soon the banquet was served, and the Sui emperor ordered Lady Yuchi to stand and drink with him. Lady Yuchi was not a heavy drinker, but because the Sui emperor favored her so much, she forced herself to drink a few cups, and before she knew it, she felt dizzy, and 2 peach blossoms appeared on her cheeks. The Sui emperor, looking at her under the lamplight, found her even more beautiful and asked, "You are so charming, yet you sleep alone tonight." "Aren't you lonely? I pity you, do you know that?" Lady Yuchi replied, "I dare not complain of loneliness, but your Majesty's pity is truly beyond my expectations. How could I not know?" The Sui emperor laughed. "Since you know, I guarantee you won't be lonely tonight." Lady Yuchi smiled slightly, "But I am a lowly servant and dare not defile your Majesty's body." the Sui Emperor said. In this world, when things are enjoyable, there is no distinction between high and low. Lady Yuchi smiled without speaking and poured another cup of wine for him. The Sui Emperor drank it and asked for another cup. The two were very happy together. The Sui Emperor, intoxicated and lustful, forgot all about Dugu's jealousy. He stayed overnight in Renshu Palace. Look at them. One a newly intoxicated king, the other a newly favored concubine. You look at my favor, I love you. How intimate they are, truly like fish in water. But see. The young orioles and swallows breathed softly. Their spirits, like rain-soaked clouds, slowly awakened. Stealing a night's dream in the deep palace, 1,000 ingenious spring scenes were painted. The next day the Sui Emperor rose early for court, his heart filled with joy, saying, "Today I truly know the joy of being emperor, but I fear the empress will find out. What will become of her?" Empress Dugu, though ill, was far from at ease, constantly sending trusted palace maids to inquire. Soon, someone reported the news. Upon hearing this, Empress Dugu was enraged. Ignoring her own health, she led dozens of palace maids and stormed into Renshu Palace. At this time, Lady Yuchi, having just experienced her first love, was both surprised and delighted. After washing and grooming, she was checking how much the yellowing on her arm had faded. Suddenly seeing the Empress and a throng of palace maids rushing towards her, she turned ashen-faced, her heart pounding wildly, and she hastily knelt on the ground. Empress Dugu entered the palace, barely finding her footing, and shouted, "Bring this vixen here." The palace maids, ignoring her slender waist and delicate face, dragged her forward, some with tangled hair, others with sashes pulled at her. They then berated her. "You vixen, what seductive tricks do you possess to dare bewitch the emperor and disrupt the elegance of my palace?" Yuchi, she trembled and replied, "This servant is of lowly status. How could I not know your majesty's rules? How dare I hope for your favor? It is my fate to die." Last night, his majesty unexpectedly came to the palace, had a supper, and became drunk, wanting to stay. This lowly servant repeatedly refused, but his majesty wouldn't listen, so I had no choice but to comply. This was his majesty's will. It has nothing to do with this lowly servant. I beg your majesty to have mercy and spare my life." Empress Dugu said, "You vixen, last night you were having fun. I wonder how you used your coquettishness and charm to deceive. That shameless emperor. Today he uses sweet words to deny everything so easily. The palace maids were ordered. Beat him severely." Lady Yuchi kowtowed. "I beg your majesty for mercy." Empress Dugu said, "Since his majesty loves you so much, you should beg him for your life. Why did you disregard your own safety last night and indulge yourself, only to come begging me today? You, this vixen, I was only slightly lax in my guard. And you managed to seduce me. Even if I beat you to death today, it will be too late to regret it and I won't be able to vent my anger. How can I leave another source of trouble, a threat to my heart? You servants, quickly end his life." Hearing this, the palace maids all struck. Poor Lady Yuchi, her delicate body could not withstand any torture. No sharp sword or steel blade was needed. She was already shattered. Truly. Entering the palace and gaining favor is also a tragedy. Today's withered flower was yesterday's bloom. One night's favor cannot hold her. She has long since followed her white bones to the netherworld. After the morning court session, Emperor Sui, still reminiscing about the previous night's pleasures, couldn't wait to rush to Renshu Palace to reunite with Lady Yuchi. However, upon entering the palace, he was shocked to find Empress Dugu standing to one side, her face contorted with rage and a menacing expression. Lady Yuchi lay on the ground, her body ravaged and bloodied. Startled by this sight, he flew into a rage, uttering no words, and turned to leave. Just then, a young eunuch led his horse past, and Emperor Sui mounted it, galloping straight out of the palace gates through the Yangxiang Alley, intending to abandon the empire and flee into the mountains. Fortunately, Gao Jiang, who had just come out of court, saw him and bravely stepped forward to stop him, demanding to know the reason for his actions. Emperor Sui had no choice but to turn back, return to the main hall, summon his officials, and recount how Empress Dugu had killed Lady Yuchi, demanding that an edict be drafted to depose the old woman. Gao Jiang advised, "Your Majesty is mistaken. Your Majesty has toiled tirelessly, venturing into the tiger's den to search for the dragon's pearl, expending countless battles to unify the world. You should be focusing on governing well to leave a legacy for your descendants, not belittling the realm because of a woman." The Sui Emperor's anger was not appeased. Gao Jiang and others repeatedly remonstrated before he finally returned to the palace. Empress Dugu, already ill, was further aggravated by this shock, her condition worsening. When she closed her eyes, she saw Yuchi's daughter acting as a demon, which led to epilepsy, worsening day by day until she died within a few months. She was forced to issue an edict throughout the land, ordering the relevant departments to determine the proper funeral rites. Later generations wrote a poem specifically about Empress Dugu's jealousy. A mere infant, a rare commodity, used to exchange for the heir apparent and move the throne. Don't say that death extinguishes the root of jealousy. Jealousy has already sown the seeds of disaster for the world. After Empress Dugu's death, the Sui Emperor, feeling lonely in the palace, issued an edict to select a beautiful woman from among the concubines and talented women of the harem to serve him. Since this decree was issued, everyone in the palace longed for the emperor's favor, and everyone yearned for his grace. But who knew that all the emperor's favor was bestowed upon one woman? How could so many be chosen? After searching the entire 6 palaces, only 2 were selected, Lady Chen and Lady Kai. Lady Chen was the daughter of Emperor Xuan of Chen, possessing a gentle nature and graceful figure, truly possessing a beauty that could make fish sink and geese fall from the sky, a beauty that could shame the moon and flowers. Lady Kai was from Danyang, equally charming and alluring. The Sui Emperor, upon seeing them, was overjoyed and said, "I am old. My heart has nowhere to turn. Now, with these 2 ladies, I will have enough to enjoy in my later years." He then bestowed upon Lady Chen the title of Lady Xuanhua, and upon Lady Kai the title of Lady Ronghua. Although both received the emperor's favor, Lady Xuanhua was especially favored. From then on, the Sui Emperor feasted daily, feeling even more content than when Emperor Dugu was alive. The Sui Emperor, being a founding emperor, was somewhat serious. Although there was joy in the palace, he was deeply concerned with state affairs, carefully reviewing all the officials' memorials, often going to bed late at night. One night, while reading memorials under the lamp, he grew drowsy and lay down on his desk. The eunuchs dared not disturb him, holding their breath in anticipation. In his hazy dream, the Sui Emperor saw himself standing alone atop the capital city, gazing into the distance at the vast rivers and mountains, feeling immense joy. He also saw 3 large trees on the city wall, their branches laden with fruit. As he gazed upon them, he suddenly heard the sound of water. Looking down at the city, he saw the water surging and rolling, its waves reaching the height of the city walls. The Sui Emperor was greatly startled in his dream and hurriedly ran down the city wall. Looking back, he saw the water rushing towards him like a raging torrent. Panicked, the Sui Emperor cried out and awoke with a start. His attendants quickly offered him tea. The Sui Emperor drank a cup of tea, then wiped his eyes and concentrated, pondering the scene in his dream. It was far from a good omen. It was a sign of a flood engulfing the capital. He needed to be vigilant in river defense and dredging of waterways to prepare for unforeseen circumstances. He also thought, how could there be a flood here? Perhaps someone's name contains a character with the water radical, which might bring future disaster to the country. He must be mindful and eliminate such characters to ensure peace. The dream's imagery was difficult to interpret. Suspicion arose, but there was nothing to worry about. The world is in turmoil, all is floodwater. Soon, our great undertaking will be swept away. The Sui emperor was always observant of auspicious omens and minor matters, and prone to suspicion. This dream only amplified his suspicions. The true meaning of this dream's omen remains unknown. Let us find out in the next chapter.